After the election, Boris Johnson promised to help revive the dying towns of Britain, particularly those who switched to the Tories after voting Labour for decades. But the government faces an uphill task in doing this, not helped by Mothercare finally closing down all its shops last weekend, Debenhams closing 19 stores this week, and Marks & Spencer in the middle of a 4-year plan to shut 100 shops. With Toys R Us, British Home Stores and Pound World already gone, what one retail analyst called this carnage is bound to continue and even accelerate. In town after town, once booming retail centres are now dominated by charity shops, cheap food outlets and empty premises. If they want to revive the spirits in these towns, the government is going to have to do something about the state of their high streets. To do this would mean creating more jobs in these towns overall, making sure rents and council tax for commercial properties are reduced, and even slowing down the ever-increasing growth of online shopping. I wish the government luck, but I don't rate their chances of success.
Greg, I'm just sad to say I think you're right. I mean, I don't see a way back from this because consumer behaviour has changed now, and particularly for young people. You know, when I think of when I was a teenager, what you did was you went to the shopping centre at the weekend and you hung out and you sort of spent your pocket money. And now they are going to shopping centres, but they're not shopping the way we did. They're going to chicken shops. And so I think that perhaps what's going to have to happen, and then you've got the threat of the Amazons and the sort of online retailers, what's going to happen is we're going to have to redesign what the high street is for. You know, there's a great quote which I'll read in a minute from Sir John Timpson, and what he talks about is them becoming hubs for the community, where that's a place where we go to interact with each other. But the idea of the high street being a vessel for consumerism, I think that's gone, and we need to decide what it's going to be instead.
I think that's probably right. The difficulty is getting from here to there,
and
isn't
the
it?
jobs
And how do you afford it? Well, I mean, first of all, there's a lot of pension funds and people who've invested, you know, got vast investments in high streets, yet rents are going to have to come down.
Yeah.
Council rate, I mean, you know,
business rates.
Business rates are probably going to have to come down. Have to come down. But that means that money has got to be replaced just to stay where we are, and not let alone do what you want to do, which is to reposition the high street. But I'm sure that's right.
One way you could try to influence the behaviour, because you only skated over online, Greg, Amazon just don't pay enough tax. Look at their turnover last year. Was it 2.3 billion? And their corporation tax went up from 4.7 million to 40 million. Can I have their accountants, please? Because that would be very helpful. And also, these councils that are crying wolf to the government saying, it's your fault, what are you going to do about it? They're the ones that allowed all the supermarkets to go out of town with parking, and they're the ones who are still fleecing shoppers with high parking charges.
You're right, but
it's a lack of imagination from local authorities.
On the tax, just as a point of information, Amazon would say they pay legally, they pay what they're due to bound to pay, as would Google, as would Starbucks, because they're not based in the UK.
Because a lot of it's domiciled in Luxembourg,
or Ireland,
the capital of the EU.
To take you, and I hear what you say about the internet and stuff, and I would have thought what you thought, but actually the truth of the matter is only 18.6% of sales are actually done online. It's still nearly 80% is done in store and in shops. But I think.
So then what's happening then?
Well, I'll tell you what's happening. It's
because that's your profit. The last 20% in most businesses, that's the profit.
But I think you're right about bringing rates up, because I think we have to decide what we want the high street to be for. And I think a lot of people, you know, in my area, there's 1 million coffee shops. I swear to God, every time an ordinary shop shuts, a coffee shop replaces. And why is that? Because people want community. They want to talk to each other. They want to mix. So there's an amazing place in York called Bishopsthorpe Road. And it's not in a posh part of York, and that's all individual little shops. And a couple of years ago, in the worst recession ever, they got together and they opened one website under a banner, and they relaunched their street. They put up bunting, And within half an hour, 3,000 people were there eating, drinking, partying. Yeah. So now their street is a place to go. People linger on that street because they want to be there, because it's social. Yeah.
But are they shopping in the...
Yes, they are.
They are?
Yes, because if they linger...
Or is it food, or what is it?
There's lots of delis, there's lots of cafes, there's butchers, there's bakers,
shops,
there's tradesman shops.
Products. That's the thing that's being lost, isn't it?
People can I just back up Carol's point on that? If we look at the number of people that prefer to spend their money in independent local retailers rather than big chains, we can see here on the screen it's 56% actually. 56% of people. Now I live in London, in East London, and so I have the benefit of that advantage because of course it's easier to do that in certain communities in London, especially in East London. But if you are where I was born, in a coastal town in Southend-on-Sea in Essex, it's harder because, of course, you've got a few obstacles in the way of that. And I think actually you're right. We need to reimagine what we want from the high street. Yep. And then we need to bring in the incentives, whether it's lower business rates or other forms of encouragement to get independent retailers. But I am wondering, though, will it primarily end up as just food as a result?
No. It's people want to go and buy their screws and their nails at the trade shop. You know, Mary Porter said a thing when she did a thing on the high street a couple of years ago, and she said, you know, we sacrificed community for convenience, and that's exactly what we've done. Because big supermarket sprawls, big out-of-town shopping centres, we took it away, and we encouraged that. We wanted that. Yeah. So it's up to us to bring it back, I think.
True. And one of the hammer blows for local community shops, I think about where I was brought up in Swindon on the council estate. Yeah. My mother used to go and get her pension with my father every week in the post office. What did the government do in its wisdom? Yes. They paid it directly into people's bank accounts. That post office with all its local merchandise has closed down, and the entire shopping square has now gone. It's quite easy to be have some joined up thinking, and government and local authorities have to get together.
Except I've asked. I mean, what's interesting is that in a lot of the poorer towns, this has been going on for years. It's interesting that we're all discussing it now, including me, because we don't live in those towns. But it's finally caught up with the towns we live in, and the shopping centres we live in.
Can I bring in a quick quote? This is Sir John Timpson, obviously, who's done remarkable things for the High Street, and he's also the chair of the High Street's expert panel, and he says, we need to put people back on the high street. To do that, we need to put back in there what people want and need. Leisure, medical services, libraries, all the things that will make sure people go into town and meet other people. So what you're saying, Carol, exactly right. My worry is that we're losing that sense of community, and actually human beings need human contact.
Yeah, and take away the parking meters too.
Yes, please.
Take away the parking. It's a tyranny. It's a tyranny.
Planners are always working out ways how to get huge numbers of cars through quickly and huge numbers of people. What they need to be doing is finding ways to make them stay. To keep them on there.
But the footfall, it's interesting, your figure that you said about, I think
it's surprising,
18% online. Actually, the footfall, the fall in footfall on high streets in the last 10 years is 20%. It's virtually...
So it is that profit you're talking about?
Well, that's what happens. I mean, these are fixed cost businesses, and all your profits the last 20%. If you're not getting that 20%, they're no longer profitable. Now, then, how can you change that? Well, you've got to change the business rates and you've got to change the rent. That might help. That might. I mean, I've talked to traders near where I live who are going, and I'm saying, why are you going? And they all say, because the rent's going up, not coming down.
But don't you also think some of these department stores need to get with it? If you go into certain House of Frasers, it's like being in Grace Brothers in Are You Being Served in the 1970s.
Is one instance of
I like
floors
that,
and charming, but a lot of young people don't really relate to Mr. Humphrey's Are You Free? I'm afraid it's had its day. You go into some of these department stores, 2 floors empty, nobody there, it's deserted, and they've got to find a way to reinvent them.
I know one of the big owners of these stores they're looking for what else can you do with them. So they're talking to theatres, they're talking to cinemas about saying, look, we've got more space than we need now.
Exactly.
Let's put something else in
it.
Okay, well, on that note, it's time for us to take a quick break. You are watching The Pledge on Sky News. Up next, how can we persuade more people to adopt?